Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Mind Your Business, where we are back with Ari Hurwitz, who is running for county council. He was born in the Pacific Northwest on a commune, and in this bio, he says, yes, a real commune, and raised for most of his life in northern New Jersey with a lot of time also spent in Oregon. After graduating from Beloit College in Wisconsin with a degree in political science and Russian, he moved to Washington, D.C. and worked on Capitol Hill at the State Department and for a nonprofit working on a collaborative international relationships between state and territorial health policy directors. He also did graduate work at George Washington University. After a couple of years in Washington, D.C., he decided that he wanted to make a change and get into the field of education. He moved back to the Midwest and worked in college admissions and financial aid before becoming a classroom teacher for nearly 8 years. At this time, he earned his master's for teaching. He now works in educational ethics for an online graduate school, as well as doing charitable work locally through a variety of organizations. He has always been an organizer as well since he moved to Muncie. He is organized to prevent the state takeover of our public schools against the jail plan and to stop the Welch facility, as well as for face masks in our schools. His wife Valerie and he have lived in Indiana for 11 years and Muncie for 8. They have 3 amazing children, aged 13, 6, and 2. And if he can find spare time, he loves to travel and adventure, experience live music, and play ultimate frisbee, and spend as much time as possible outdoors. Tonight, we welcome Ari Hurwitz, and we thank him for taking the time out to join us on Mind Your Business. So we thank you for joining us, and now we welcome Ari. Hello, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Tanika.
Thank you, Ari, for joining us. Why don't you go ahead and let us know who you are, what you do, and why you're doing it.
Yeah, so my name is Ari Hurwitz, and I am running for an at-large seat on Delaware County Council. Tanika gave you a lot of the background on just kind of who I am. And finally, this year, I just decided to throw my hat in the race and run. The two biggest impetuses for it, one is just I feel like there is a very severe lack of transparency and accessibility for the public to have their voice heard in our county government. I feel like a lot of things are kind of rubber stamped or done like they've always been done, and there's not a lot of innovation and again, just not a lot of opportunity for people to be heard. And the last straw for me was last year when there was the proposal for a $45 million jail plan to build a new jail, take the jail away from downtown, take all the people working there away from other businesses that they might eat at and whatnot. And also just to spend half of our edit funds for a generation to build a new jail. And quite frankly, one larger than was initially requested. And I think we know enough about the justice system to know that they don't leave beds empty. And that's a frightening proposition. And so for me, the reason I'm running as a first-time candidate is just that I believe in the utmost transparency. I believe in integrity in all things we do. I think accessibility is also important. I think that as elected officials, we absolutely need to be there. This is a democracy. We need to be available to people at all times. And I mean people from all sectors of our county. I think one of the biggest problems in the county government is Muncie is 2/3 of the population and 2/3 of the tax dollars, but yet they really don't get heard. There's like the disappearing donut hole of Muncie in the minds of county officials, I think, sometimes in the way they spend money. And I'm just not okay with that. I think our tax dollars need to be spent with a fine-tooth comb, focused on all communities. I think we need to support our workers, support our small businesses. I think we need to make just and equitable decisions. And yeah, we'll talk more, but that's why I'm running.
Yeah, absolutely. So, congratulations on stepping up and taking a stand. I know that a lot of the candidates this year that are first time or coming back after a loss or just wanting to see a change are speaking to transparency. So if you will, just let us know what that looks like in your eyes.
That's a great question. Yeah, I appreciate that question, especially, Tanika, because I think it's just a buzzword. Everyone can say transparency, but what does that really mean? So I think it needs to be one, personal, and two, governmental. So in the personal sense, I've made a commitment. Everything I hand out when I'm going through the door, it has my cell phone number on it. And I tell you, I get calls every day, and every single one of them, 99%, but every single one, oh, I can't believe you picked up the phone. I can't believe you called me right back. No one ever does that. And I'm just a big believer in, if you get elected to something, you need to be for your constituents. It's not just about your vote, it's also about your voice. And so, let's say you have something that you want to bring up to the city council or the mayor or the commissioners or some board, but for whatever reason you feel comfortable coming to me. And I say, okay, well, that's not before the county council, but too often their elected officials have blinders, and so they go, okay, that's not before the county council or whatever. So sorry. But I think if you're my constituent and this is something that's important and I need to stand for you, I need to go to that meeting, I need to find you the information, make that connection. I think that's super important for us to use our voice as well. So that's on a personal level. In a governmental level, I actually offered a 12-step plan a 12-point plan on my website for transparency and responsiveness to our constituents. And that's just the beginning. That's just stuff I've come up with. And some of it's pretty basic, like all documentation that the council members have should be made public immediately. So if they're making a decision on a vote based on information they have, the public should have absolute access to that, and they currently don't. They finally did start live streaming meetings only because of COVID, and I hope they'll continue doing that. But I also think that people should be able to ask questions and make statements via the live stream so they can have the same engagement if you were in person. I think the meeting times need to be changed. They're right now in the morning, early in the morning on a weekday. Well, if you're a working person, if you have a family, that's not really possible to get to. And so it kind of keeps engagement down. I think that we need to make sure that we are out in the public. We need to make sure that we are not only responding to calls and emails and that sort of thing, but also that we are there even when we haven't been called or emailed. I've been to a number of neighborhood association meetings in Muncie and elsewhere, and the first question I ask every single time is, have you ever had a county official come to your meeting? And 95% or more of the time they say, absolutely not, never, never, never. And I say, well, see, that's part of the problem is just, if you're not out there, sometimes people won't even know to get a hold of you. They won't even know what it is, And there are a number of other things. I mean, it kind of ultimately leads, and this was the 12th point, right? The 12th point is a portal of some sort that is sort of a real-time tracking of tax dollars being spent. Now, I don't know that would be able to happen as immediately, but I think that can be an ultimate goal where just any resident could log in and literally see where are these millions of dollars being spent at their fingertips. And I don't mean to, be naive and think, 110,000 people in the county are going to all want that. But it should be there for the people who do.
Yeah. Well,
I don't need to go over the whole thing.
No, you're fine. So when I was younger, I always thought that the government was for the people and that it was to work for the people. But as I got older, I started seeing things a different way. And it seems like a lot of times there are what I like to call gatekeepers. People that keep you at bay from being able to only come so far. And so as a citizen in this community, I've been here my whole life. So I've seen a lot of different things transpire. I've seen a lot of different people in positions, and I haven't seen a lot of change. And so that leads me to what I've asked the other people that I've had on the show as far as, why don't people get out and vote? Well, what I've heard is because it doesn't matter. It's the same old, same old. Nothing's going to change. Why should I go vote? Why is it going to matter what I say or do when nobody cares about us over here? They only care about what they can do for them. So help us to understand what you are going to do if elected that would make that difference.
Yeah, you have a great analysis of that, because I think a lot of people get on voters and say, you got to vote, you got to vote, you got to vote. And I think it's an easy thing to say when you come from a more privileged community. If you come from a place that, you've never had to struggle for something, because, that's who government's created for. And in a way, shouldn't government actually be there to help everyone else more who need the help more, So for me, it's really, first of all, stopping that blame game. Now, don't get me wrong. I think everyone does need to vote, because I promised that the moment everyone did, those politicians would pay pretty close attention. I've told that to some young people. I said, you ever want politicians to go barnstorming the country to high schools and colleges just vote as much as older people do, and they would, but they go to senior citizen centers because those people vote. That said, though, if the government hasn't worked for you for your whole life, I understand why people would say, well, why should I believe? So, my comment to them, and especially in Delaware County, where quite frankly, both parties have issues with their administration and their top leadership. There have been indictments on the Democratic side for sure. And a lot of people have kind of gotten fed up. I mean, I'm running as a Democrat, but I have been in Muncie now for 9 years and, have been just as appalled by those things as everybody else. I've not, taken a dollar from the party, given a dollar to the party. And that doesn't mean I'm against people who've just lived in Muncie their whole life and are Democrats and so consider themselves part of the party. But I just believe that our integrity is everything. That's really where it comes from. I have to go to sleep at night, and I do believe in God myself, but even if you don't, your integrity is your own. And when you go to sleep at night, you either know that you worked tirelessly with everything you've got, your voice, your hands, all of it, to help as many people as you possibly could with everything you could, and you didn't cut corners, or you don't. And I don't like going to sleep that other way. So for me, that's everything. And so what I say to people is just the reason that they feel the gatekeepers is because of the nature of that other side. The people who it might not be indictable offenses, right, every time. It might just be a cozy deal. Oh, this person rubbed my back, I'm going to rub theirs, that kind of thing. And so, here's a good example. I talked to some faculty at Ball State about innovative economic development ideas. And I said, well, have you ever talked to city government officials, county government officials? Everything you're saying is backed up by data. Sounds great. They said, no, they're not really interested. The executives, the commissioners, the mayor, all of that. And I said, wow, and I thought about it. And again, sometimes you don't want to hear things that don't support what you want to do anyway. And I think, again, that gets back to that gatekeeper idea. We don't want to hear things that don't support. So we don't want to give people voice. We don't want new data. We don't want innovative ideas because that might show that maybe we're not doing this for the right reason, or maybe the idea we have that we're stubbornly pushing forward on, doesn't work. And so for me, I've always been, the idea of servant leadership is kind of an overused buzzword. Everyone says, I'm a servant leader. And then you look and you're like, well, you're not a servant and you're not a leader. So that's a problem. But I've always just tried to serve. I'm not coming in with a specific agenda. I mean, obviously I believe some things, but I think you come in and you say, the tools are on the table. The goal needs to be the benefit of people, communities, neighborhoods. We need to get back to that. And if it's not working for that, then I'm not for it. If it is working for that, then that's the point. And so all ideas are welcome. And one of the things I've said on the trail, kind of going door to door, that gets to your point, I've talked to Republicans. I've talked to people who voted for Democrats their whole life and have finally said, I'm not doing it anymore because, of the corruption. And I said, here's the thing. I can't convince you I'm different. I can only ask that you give me a chance so I can prove it. But I can tell you that even if we disagreed 100% of the time, I will always pick up the phone. I will always listen to you to get exactly away from what you're saying, that gatekeeper idea where, oh, well, who did you support in the primary? Well, I don't know. I can't really help you now. It's wrong. You're my constituent. I'm here to help you. I'm here to serve you. There's no gatekeeper. You can get in touch with me anytime.
Yeah. I'm a strong believer of collaboration and working together. And so how important is it that all hands are on deck when it comes to working on a project or doing something? How does that, what does that mean to you?
I think it's hugely important, and especially here in Delaware County. I think a lot of the problems we have are exacerbated by the animosity between the city and the county. I think the whole county EMT, Muncie Fire thing, kind of blew it all up. I went to county meetings where county officials were angry and being very public and blaming and all of this. And I'm just like, look, whatever side of this you're on, no one is benefited by one government entity screaming about another government entity, because it's not only not working together, but it's breaking trust to ever work together. So, now I know the mayor says there's more collaboration, but it's also easy to say that when it's single party rule. when you have Republicans in this case controlling the county and the city, well, now it's easy to work together. But what if it wasn't? Can you work together with people that you don't necessarily always see eye to eye with? So I do believe it's vital. I think the way that happens is getting away from that gatekeeper thing you brought up before and just saying, we're all here to do this job for our constituents. We need to do it. I do believe there needs to be a balance. I think collaboration ends when someone is clearly not moving forward with a goal to benefit our residents, our communities. When that is clear, then sometimes you do need to hold people accountable and speak out. So I do think sometimes we see this nationally when someone says they just won't listen, and you think like, well, you're saying pretty horrible things, so at that point maybe they shouldn't be working with you. But I think that does need to be a last resort when it becomes clear someone has no interest in working together.
Okay, so what do you tell the citizens about the education system and how it is going to benefit their children? Because I know when they went down to one high school and two middle schools, and it was a lot of parents that moved out and took their children out of Muncie Public Schools. And I grew up in Muncie, like I said, all my life, and I went to Muncie Public Schools, and I went to Southside, and that house, my mother went to Southside, my father went to Southside, grandparents, and now we don't have that legacy anymore. And so what is it to do to get people to come back into the community, to trust the school system again, and to understand that their children's education matters?
Yeah, I mean, you said it. It's kind of timely for this question for me, particularly because the last 2 weeks I've been going door to door, specifically on the South Side, just for a lot of hours, dozens of hours, and it's what I've heard from everybody. Just we've been left behind. Our schools have been closed, the industry has left, and all the stuff that now is trying to be brought back is on McGalliard or big box stores. It's not really beneficial to us. And again, it gets back to me saying, we need to be working for all communities. When they redo one neighborhood and leave another one to kind of crumble when there's not a sidewalk for miles on the south side, on the east side, it's wrong. I mean, it's wrong on a human level, and it doesn't benefit us in economic development because every single town, every single county are giving tax incentives for big businesses to come. If we don't have the quality of life and the quality of place in our communities, businesses won't come because their workers won't want to live there or stay there. So as it relates to the schools in specific, I think we need to get innovative. So for instance, at Westside Elementary, or at Westview Elementary, they started a bilingual immersion program starting in kindergarten, and now it's kindergarten and first grade. I think that's wonderful. Certainly the only one of its kind, not just in the county, but anywhere near here. I think that we need to do two things. I think we need to strengthen the programs we have. And I think, increasing AP offerings and these things in the high school, all this stuff is good. But I also think that innovation, something that is different, something that someone's going to say, wow, a dual language program. There was talk also about a world cultures program. I know before, like maybe 2 years ago, 1 year ago, I went to a presentation on this. I think this is wonderful. I think every school should have something like that. If every school in our district had some sort of an innovative program, it would start to bring students back for those reasons. And I think as we get students back, it becomes a domino effect where there's a tipping point where people talk to people, it becomes promoted. And then all of a sudden, you start to see those numbers of people coming back grow exponentially every year, which means we get more state money, which means the schools can then even more improve. So, at some point it becomes like a steady rolling train. But I think innovation has to be the way. And I got to be honest, because that's my background, the pace should not be slow. There's no reason for it to be slow. You get creative educators in a room. I've been in rooms like that. I've designed curriculum. It shouldn't take a million years. It just really involves walking in and saying, not, okay, it's May, let's prepare for next school year, but it's May, let's rewrite the book. In 2 years, let's develop all of these programs that are going to be launched, and they're going to just rock people's socks.
Yeah. Well, good. Also, I know that I've heard that a lot of the times, because people don't vote, their communities are abandoned. Now, I believe if we are constituents, it doesn't matter what community you live in, because
100%.
it's not to say that everyone in that community isn't voting, but it might be a majority of the community that isn't voting, and then others are left to suffer. And it could be elderly, or it could be a newly married couple, and someone that is just really not educated on why they should vote. And again, I say maybe if the ones running were to go into those communities and speak to those issues and talk to the people and find out what it is that they want, then maybe they would vote. Because a lot of times I feel, since that's what I've been told, that if you don't vote for those particular people, then they're not going to do anything for you. Well, again, are they not
It's not the
working
way
for
it
the
should work.
people? So it does not matter. So how can we change that mindset, as far as, if you don't vote for me, I'm not going to come over there, when in reality it should be, I'm coming over here because I want to show you that you mean something. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
just about what we can develop over here, because I grew up on the South Side. And when I drive through my old neighborhood, it's disheartening to
Yeah.
see how run down it is, to see that, I mean, there used to be family, and it used to be community, and a really good love, and people in the neighborhood knew each other, and the kids were able to be out. And now it's like, I don't want to be over there half the time if there's things going on, but that's not the case. That's not true. And I'm not speaking of myself. I'm saying of what I'm hearing in general.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, if people don't feel comfortable going into a neighborhood, and they feel more comfortable going on to another side, that's a problem. Because
Yeah.
is our city divided? Is there two parts of our city? And if so, how do we bring that back together as far
Yeah.
as government goes?
I would say too often there is. And, my comment is, if there's a part of the place that you represent that you're not comfortable going in, don't represent that place. Don't run. I mean, again, they say, oh, this place is scary, that place is scary, Shedtown. I walked door to door in all of these places. Was in Shedtown 2 weeks ago. The rest of the South, nothing scary. I had great conversations. I will say people are angry, people are frustrated. But why wouldn't they be when you see what's happened to these areas and how they've been left behind? And so, quite frankly, we should be there even more, because I think not only is it dangerous for an elected official to ignore those areas, but I think it's especially dangerous for them to ignore those areas and then sort of have this almost kind of privileged or dismissive thought of like, oh, well, what are you going to do down there? Why are they like that?
Mm-hmm.
They're like that because of your actions, because you haven't gone down there, because you haven't cared, because you haven't. So for me, it's as simple as like neighborhoods do community cleanups. How many elected officials say, hey, this is the month where they're doing them. I'm going to do one every Saturday. It's not about, I'm going to wear my shirt and make sure I get on the front page of the Star Press. It's about, I'm going to talk to the people there and say, hey, I love seeing you cleaning up your own community. How can we help? What can we do? It's building those relationships. And it's not just doing it one Saturday, having your picture taken, leaving a half an hour in. It's saying, what job helps the most? You want me to do the dirtiest job? You want me to scrub the floors? Okay, I want to help. Because there are always those opportunities. It's not just neighborhood association meetings. It's, just all of it. And I think the biggest thing that someone can do, and it's going to take a long time. I think that's the other thing. Too many times elected officials sort of want to go 5 times or 2 times and then go, oh, see, I'm a champion of the east side, the south side, the whatever side. And they don't realize that this problem has been created over 20, 30, 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
That you're going to show up 5 times and everyone's going to hail you as the hero of this neighborhood is arrogant, quite frankly. And so if you're going to do it, you have to know that you need to invest yourself, that you're going to be there often, that you're going to have tough conversations often, that people are going to be mistrustful of you for longer than you're comfortable with. But that's okay, because if you're going to rebuild those relationships, then you got to be willing to do that.
Yeah. So as far as the county goes, do you hear static coming through on your side?
No.
Okay, good. I kind of got a little feedback, so it might be my side. But as far as the county goes and the money and how it is split up, and then there's new development again in certain areas, in certain places. What do the people in the areas that aren't being built up, how do they get that money to come into their communities? What do they need to do to stand up and say, hey, this is what we need over here? And I mean, I understand that voting matters, but I'm talking about even if they're not voting, they still live there. They're still here because the census is important. They want everybody to be counted. And so if you want everybody to be counted, then everybody should be, I promise you, if you live in an environment that you feel good in, you're going to do good in. And so if they were built up, then that may give them the initiative to go vote. So how do they get that started to say, hey, we want our neighborhoods beautified? I mean, Muncie has spent millions of dollars beautifying downtown and making new trails and doing the greenways. But again, where I grew up, I haven't seen one dime poured in over there. So I'm just trying to understand, even as myself, what can I do?
Yeah, and what you're saying is so true. It's interesting, from an accessibility perspective, which we haven't talked about yet, and I'm just used as an example. I met a gentleman named David, a little, maybe right before the campaign started or through the campaign. I know they were at my kickoff, and he's a gentleman who happens to use a motorized wheelchair. And he offered to me, he said, I have an extra one, it's an older one. And if you're willing, I'd like to take you out and we'll both be in motorized wheelchairs. And I'd like to take you to, he had developed a number of tours. So I went with him actually 2 or 3 Fridays ago now for 5 hours, including an hour in the dark. And we started downtown, so he pointed out some issues there. But again, this is what money can do, right? And then we went all the way, McCullough Park and MLK and into Whiteley and said, this is what happens when they don't invest money, and some of it was just systemic. I mean, all this broken up land and places that don't have a sidewalk for 10 blocks. But even some of it was just illogical. I mean, a sidewalk that was built where one side has the dip. So if you have a wheelchair, you get down, but then you go across the road and the next sidewalk doesn't have a dip. So how do you get back up? So I bring this all up to say that the issues you're talking about are not only real, but they touch so many areas. So what can people do about it? So I think there are 2 things. The first one is whether you voted or not, organize and have a voice in these meetings. The attendance of county council and commissioner meetings is terribly low. Now, look, I'm not saying that everybody needs to show up. We don't need thousands of people there, but I'm saying that if you have a community that has a concern, kind of like a neighborhood association president, right? I'm not saying it has to be that person, but hey, this is what's on the docket at the next city council meeting, the next commissioner meeting, the next county council meeting. If that was, so like an organized leader or something of that, constituency or that neighborhood that would bring the concern. So it would be one voice, but they'd be coming with the power when they got up to speak and say, I've heard from dozens of my residents about this. This is our concern. I think that's huge. Because it allows the people's voice to be heard. Now, if you could get more, great, but I'm being a realist here. I don't think that all of a sudden 1,000 people are going to say, yep, I'm going to every government meeting. There's one voice who kind of represents a certain community at these meetings. It would be so helpful. And then the second one is, and unfortunately, this is the biggest one, because unfortunately, even with all those voices, they're just elected officials who think they know what they're doing before they learn anything about what they're doing. So they kind of come in with a preconceived notion, and you can get up there and say, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. We saw it with the jail plan, and they're like, too bad, so sad, doing it anyway. But here's some expert opinion. Here's some, this person's an urban planning expert. This person's a law enforcement, who cares? So at the end of the day, I will push back a little bit and say the reason that voting matters is because we have to elect people who are actually going to listen.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, voice matters, but it's like right now when people say, I'm against a certain thing and the Republicans are pushing it through nationally. So you have a Republican senator, call, email, get in touch with them. I'm like, you have 10 million phone calls. They're not going to change their mind because they're not listening to you. And so you really do have to elect people who are going to listen every time and they're going to care. And that's going to be in regards to the people's voice. That's going to be in regards to expert data and research. They're not coming in with a preconceived notion. They're coming in with an open mind.
Yeah. So you mentioned accessibility. So let's
Yeah.
talk about accessibility and then go
Huge.
ahead and talk about diversity as well.
Please. Oh, you just want me to talk about it?
Yep, just go ahead.
Okay. Accessibility is everything. I mean, it's not right to be in a country like ours. It's the richest country in the world, and you have people who, it's not even about rights sometimes, because you can pass a law and give people quote unquote rights, but then what do they say? Unfunded mandates, I think is the term. So you pass a law, but then the money's not there for it. There's no enforcement. So you have the Americans with Disabilities Act, but what happens when someone goes forward and builds and someone's got to report them, and then it's a fine. I mean, it's like it's not, and then it's basically it's there so people can say, oh, look what we did, but it's not there structurally. It's not there with practical plans on how is this going to be really done thoroughly in a community. And I look at it, some of it is common sense, like who needs stairs? I'm just going to use this example. When new buildings are built, why do they even have stairs? Why do we have to have stairs and a handicap ramp? Just build a ramp. I've never heard of anyone who says, I need stairs, love stairs, stairs are my thing. So part of it is also looking at how ableist we are in just the way we construct our ideas of buildings. Who invented stairs in the first place? So again, on stairs, but it's just this idea that when we look at the way we design buildings, we design them for people not in wheelchairs, not with crutches, not blind, not what have you. And I think about this as a teacher. I taught a second grade class, and I had a student who struggled very severely with auditory processing disorder and dyslexia. And I went and actually got specially trained in a certain program, a certain kind of delivery program that would help that student. And what I learned is, wow, if this is just how we taught kids to read and write in kindergarten, all the kids would learn really, really well. It would possibly even work better than the systems we have in place now. And all those kids who then start to fall behind because they have some sort of a processing something or what have you, and then their whole life they have that stigma, so they always feel like they're not good enough, wouldn't even know, because everyone would just be learning that way. And I feel like that if we can just design our cities and our buildings with accessibility in mind, it wouldn't be such a big issue because it would just be the way it's designed. It wouldn't have to be retrofitted or made that way. And I think part of the problem is, I don't care what kind of a city engineer you are. I don't care what, you are not in a wheelchair. You are not whatever it is. So to have, public works department, to have meetings and to not have representatives from these communities that could say, hey, y'all are the experts in one way, but this building design doesn't have this in it. It's another set of eyes and another set of eyes that look on it in a different way. So I think it's huge. And I think it's not going to be so difficult to combat. It just is, again, taking away, you said the greatest word, taking away the gatekeepers, taking away the egos, and saying, of course we want people from these communities in our meetings, on our boards. We'll be better off for it. The city will be better off. Because, the gentleman I talked to, he said, hey, I've been to these meetings. They treated me like my brain didn't work. And I hear that from people with disabilities, like, hey, I'm brilliant. I'm great. I have an expertise here. It's just that I can't walk. So why do I get treated like my brain doesn't work? And it's a huge problem. And then diversity. That's all. Do you have another hour? Truly, because I think the even bigger question than diversity is equity and justice, because, diversity is wonderful, but I think it's also become something that those who are not really interested in it truly have figured out how to work. Oh, to quote a friend of mine who happens to be a Black female who is has a PhD and is actually the head of the health sciences program where I used to work. She said, while it's flattering to be asked to be on every diversity committee at every academic institution I work for and have worked for, because I'm usually the only Black female, what do you want me to do? I didn't create systemic racism. Y'all need to figure out your problems and report back to me when you're done. And so sometimes the quote unquote diversity, I mean, I hate to put too fine a point on it, but it's like a headline. Oh, look, we have one of this and one of this and one of this community on our board. But are you really, not you, but, are these government officials, are these boards really going beyond, isn't that nice? You know, we put a Black woman on this board or what have you, to like, one, are we valuing the view of that person and how it's different? I mean, I remember when Sonia Sotomayor became a Supreme Court justice, and she made some point about being a strong Latina female justice. And they said, what does being a Latina have to do with it? And she said, it has everything to do with it. I bring a different perspective because of my roots and my upbringing. And people kind of, oh, you know, this, I was like, that's a beautiful thing. If we're not learning from that and we're just doing it because, oh, this person looks different, it's a problem. And then the next step, then we as members of, you know, a class that's not that or a race that's not that, are we then getting out and understanding different communities culturally? Are we saying, oh, for instance, at a meeting I was at, this is now about 4 years ago, someone who happened to be from the Islamic community in Muncie said, has anybody in this room ever been to our services? And no one had. And I sat there and thought, oh, hey, one of your services? And they told me, and I said, well, I'd love to come this week. Because you have a good point. You know, I could sit here on the board with someone who happens to be Muslim, but I've never been to Muslim services. I really, truly have no idea what they teach there. So I think the idea of diversity is like a beautiful one, but it needs to be true. It needs to go beyond what the picture looks like of the makeup of that organization to what are the viewpoints that we're valuing, what are the cultural perspectives that we're valuing, how are we bringing them into every discussion, how are we being made to sometimes feel uncomfortable because of our complacency or our privilege or whatever it be in the discussion to kind of crack some wall to get past it. You know, how much are we examining our own implicit biases? I mean, I can sit here and say, wow, this was a topic I realized 20 years ago and I've spent 20 years examining them. But, you know, you can either take the perspective of like, so didn't I do a great job? Or, so, hey, I'm only 20 years in. I hope to live till I'm 97 and that gives me 40, 50 more years of work. So that's kind of my view on it.
Yeah. Well, Ari, you know, I've really had some great discussions today, and that's what this platform is all about.
Wonderful.
It's not about my opinion of it. It's not about what I think or believe. It's about letting people have a voice, to have the freedom to speak. Because in this free country that we have, oftentimes we get shut up and we get told that that doesn't matter and nobody is listening to that. And so that's again why I created this platform, because people need to understand that everybody has a voice, and what you're saying is different than what someone else said, but there is other people out there that want to hear both of you, that can learn something from both of you, and that can say, wow, really, they didn't say the same exact thing, but they're not that different in what they're saying. And so now I can understand that we're all people and we just have to have a conversation, and we have to understand we all want the same things. We might go about different ways of getting them, but if we understand that we do make a difference and that we do have a voice and that somebody's listening, no matter who it is, it might just be one person that you reach. That person needed to hear what you had to say. And so I thank you for, again, stepping up and coming into something, because I think a lot of times, again, like you said, people get complacent and they get familiar with what they've been doing so long that they're like, I'm going to put my name in and I've been here, nothing's going to happen. But when we have freshness, when we have newness, when we have someone that comes and stirs the pot, people don't like pot stirrers, and I'm usually a pot stirrer because I'll ask questions and I'll say things, and so they don't want to see me coming. But again, this platform is for that, because
and you probably, like me, are happy to be held just as accountable as you want to hold them. And that's
yeah, absolutely.
Like, oh, why are you holding me accountable? I say, well, hold me accountable, please.
Yes, it means a lot, because I believe in saying what you mean. If I make a commitment, then I'm going to follow through on that commitment. If I say I'm going to do something, I don't care what it is I feel like. If I committed to you, I'm going to show up, you know. Right. And that's what I feel like. If we're going to vote for someone and they've said these things and they've made these commitments, then once we do come to the polls and we do vote and they get elected, we expect them to show up, you know, and we expect them to do what is said. And so I wish you all the best. And if there's anything else that you would like to say or that you would like anybody to know before we get off, feel free. This is your time to do so.
Yeah, thank you. Tanika. I just really appreciate you having me on. And I want to tell you also, having been, different forums and different live feeds, I really appreciate the questions you've asked. I think the type of questions you've asked will really demonstrate who someone is. I think sometimes there are questions asked that are easy to kind of fluff, easy to kind of move around and go, no, I sort of this, or I can see how it could go this way. So I appreciate the pointedness of your questions. What I would just say to people is I really encourage you to research candidates on the ballot in November. So I've worked really, really hard. My wife and I estimated that by the time the election rolls around, I will have spent 1,000 hours communicating with people, getting out there, developing messages, the whole 9 yards. And I believe that it's important to look, if you can't find a candidate's website and they're not trying to make it easy to find their positions, then what does that tell you about someone? And so I just encourage people to research the candidates. I certainly hope you like what I've had to say, but you do have 3 votes in Delaware County Council at large. You don't have to vote for 3 people. And that's why I encourage to vote for the candidates. You can vote for 1, 2, or 3, whoever inspires you. I will also say, just as an educational thing, that if you vote straight ticket, you do have to mark off your individual choices for Delaware County Council where they won't be counted. And that's important for people to know so their vote can be counted. If you'd like to research me further, my website is www.ari4, the number 4, there we go, number 4, council. So ari4council.com. And I try to put as much on there as I can. I'm Ari4 Council at Facebook as well. I try to keep that very populated. And, if you like what I've said enough to volunteer, we'd love to have you call or, go door to door for us. And, unfortunately, these things also cost money to get the message out to a county as large as ours. So if you believe in what I said enough to make a contribution, you can go to the website and click donate as well. Every dollar counts. Certainly, if you can give a large donation, that's great. But we've had people give $20, $10. It all adds up at the end to make sure that we actually win in November and can serve the people like we've been talking about. So thank you so much. I encourage you also to look into voting early. I know some people, because of what the president's done, are discouraged about the mail, but you still can vote early in person starting October 6th. In the county building downtown. And then obviously November 3rd is election day. Tell everyone, vote, 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 vote.
All right. Well, you heard it from Ari Hurwitz, and he has given you who he is. So if he is your candidate, go out and vote for him. If he's not your candidate, go out and vote for who is. But whatever you do,
right,
be educated, be informed, make an informed decision, go out and vote. Thank you once again for tuning in tonight. Thank you, Ari, for being our guest. And remember, people, no matter what you do in life, you were created with a purpose. God bless you and good night.
Good night.
Ari, hang on with me for just a second.